So we did the dollar yen, we did the dollar Swiss. So we're looking now for the strong currencies to buy. So we had the Australian dollar as one of our currencies to be looking at buying it, and we are looking at the euro as the next one, which is still not yet a sell signal. So we're now going to look at the Australian dollar. And you can see even though the Australian dollar and the US dollar was rallying, if you look at the dollar index, look at this here. This is the Australian dollar moving up. It was selling off from the beginning of the week for the last 4 days, and then come Friday we had this big reversal day in the Australian dollar. If you look at the dollar index, you can see that the dollar was very strong on Thursday and Friday, and actually was being bought for the last 4 days before that. So if you look at this area here, this is how we gauge strength and weakness, guys. If you look at this area over here, this is the dollar. It's not going down, it is moving sideways, it's being bought, and then it exploded to the upside. Now if I go to the Australian dollar, this is what happened during the days that the dollar was being bought, was moving sideways. They were actually buying the dollar and selling the Australian. Most of the buying that was in the US dollar index was actually as a result of them selling the Australian dollar and taking their profits, because you could see this exaggerated move to the downside in the Australian, while at the same time the dollar was moving sideways. Now once the dollar began to react versus the other currencies, against the euro and against the British pound and against the Japanese yen, this is what is happening with the Australian dollar. The Australian dollar is actually going up. So now you can see that even though the US dollar is strong and it's going up, it is also the Australian dollar is also strong, and therefore we have to be very selective before we choose where we are going to sell the Australian. But in this case we are still looking at buying the Aussie versus the dollar. But in this case, keep in mind you're buying two strong currencies, so the move will be slow and grinding. Okay? Now it closed the week at 106.95, and is actually kind of a neutral, so we really don't have any sell signal over here, so we have to look for a structural setup on the charts, on the intraday chart, before we find a short entry, or we can find even a buy entry. So this is kind of a neutral area. I mean, this is just kind of neutral, so I have to look at the intraday charts to identify a real buying point and a real selling point based on the intraday structure. So based on, as you can see, we have a downward trend which is bona fide, and this has not yet identified itself. We should be looking, it's neither a continuation nor is it a reversal. So having said that, this here is going to be our buying point. The 108 is going to be our buying point, the 108. And if I am going to go short, I'm going to go short below the 106.30. So I will be short below, and these are entries based on the chart structure. It is not that will tend. So if I'm going to go short below the 106.31, I have to place my stop above the 107. So I'm risking about 70 points on this here, which is a big stop, but that's what the market is giving us. And if I'm going to buy, I'm going to buy it above the 108. And I'm going to place my stop below the market side. Now you can see in this instance our stops in both cases is about 75 pips on either side, and that is an indication when you're dealing with two very strong currencies, one which is fundamentally strong and the other is as a result of a short covering, then there is a lot of volatility in the market and you have to widen your stops. If you use a tight stop, the odds are most probably you will be stopped out. So if the stop is too big for you, then you might choose to trade another pair. And that is precisely why we go through the drill every week to identify the strong and the weak. So if this is big stop, when you're dealing with strong currencies, then you're dealing with big stops. Okay, my structure points to the downside is the 103.89. It has not changed, and the structure long is the 110, which is the all-time high, which it hasn't changed. Okay, so let's put the Aussie dollar, the numbers here. So we are going to buy where's my buying point here? Above the 108. My buying point is the 108 even, and if I buy it above 108, my stop is at 107.33, my long stop. So if I buy, my stop is below 107.33. I will go short only below 106.31, and if I do, I'm going to place my stop above the 107. My structure long point is still the 110, 111, whatever the high is, and my structure short is still the same one as of last week. Okay? Alright guys, that is the Australian dollar. So let me save that and